Good morning and welcome to the first in the series of webinars for This Can Happen. So we are aiming to support you and your colleagues and families with a series of webinars at this slightly tricky time. So today we're looking at supporting teens with their cancelled exams. Okay, so Celine, who's our guest speaker, we've got a few little technical issues, but we should be fine. So she's actually phoning into this webinar. So when she starts speaking, just let me know if you can in the question box that you can hear her properly. So Celine will talk to you for about 50 minutes that you'll be able to follow along on your screen, and then we'll move on to questions at the end. So you can ask a question at any time during the session. All you need to do is type it into the question box on the right hand side of your screen. The questions are totally anonymous and they only come to me. So please feel free to contribute in complete confidence. I will then read out your questions at the end. Obviously, the more interactive we can be, the better. The more questions you have, please do send them to me and I'll try and get through them. Now, I know we're all dependent on our own IT today. So just let me know if you can't hear us. So yes, that's it really. So now it gives me great pleasure to hand over to our guest speaker today, Celine Brown.
Good morning, everyone. Strange times we live in. On the slide that gives you a little bit of blurb about me, where it says I've worked in education for 30 years. I've worked in education for 30 years plus and never had to deal with a situation like this. So it's very much uncharted territory for all of us. And I think that the thing that will make the difference is we're all in it together and we're all going to do our best to make it work for each other. So I started off as a classroom teacher and eventually got to be on a senior leadership team in various schools. Some of them were state, some of them were independent. I finished my teaching career in schools, working in a through school, so it had a nursery all the way through to a sixth form. So I've had the experience going the full range, but the bulk of my career was spent working with sixth form students and advising them on things like UCAS applications. So a lot of my time has been working with young people doing exams, and I have done webinars previously which are all to do with how do you cope with exam pressure, how do you cope with exam stress, how do you focus on revision. And so for me, this webinar is a very strange one to do. If I had been doing this 12 months ago and I'd said to some of the young people I was working with, it doesn't matter, the exams won't happen, they'd have thought, great. Now we're in that situation, exams aren't happening, and we're all thinking, help, what do we do next? So if we could move to the first slide, Susie, that says exams cancelled, what happens next? And there are 4 bullet points on that slide, which are the areas that I want to try and focus on. The first of which is the practicalities. You know, what do we have to get to grips with? Who is going to be passing us information? And that's going to be schools, it's going to be universities, it's going to be the government, and all of those people have got to wait for each other to come up with a response before they can do something. And as well as the practicalities that we've got to try and deal with, there's also how do we actually feel about any of this? How do we feel as a parent? What are we supposed to say as a parent to make things better? And as a young person, what are we supposed to feel? Are we angry about it? Are we sad about it? Nobody quite knows how they feel. And I think the thing with feelings is you can have different feelings. So today I might be sad and tomorrow I might be angry. How do we cope with all of those things? And then, of course, there's the fact that we are all in this together, but actually we're all in this together in the same house. And so you could have some people trying to work, you could have some people trying to run the house, you could have some people just trying to get their heads together because they don't quite know what's going on. And so you've got family life but it's not family life as we know it. Some of the pressures have gone, other pressures have taken their place, and we're not supposed to be going out anywhere. If you've got a garden, that's good, but you might not want to go out in it. You can go for a walk, but you're not supposed to be going for a walk together. All of these things make it incredibly difficult to work out what you're supposed to be doing. And then we're supposed to be trying to deal with the future. We're supposed to be resilient. We're supposed to use this as a way of strengthening ourselves. But we don't actually know at this moment in time what that future holds. We don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know whether we will do exams, whether we won't do exams. We don't know what the universities are going to do. We don't know what the schools are going to do. We don't know what our own employment has in place for us. We don't know whether our own jobs are going to still be there. So everybody, whatever age you are, this is completely different territory. And what we have to do is try and make plans to get through that. So if we can move on to the next slide, please, which talks about dealing with those practicalities. And everybody who is at school, or everybody who has a child of school age, is dealing with different systems. But the focus of what we're doing today is very much Year 11 and Year 13, who now have got their exams cancelled, and you're sitting in a bit of limbo because you don't know. What were schools told? Schools were told initially, we're going to close the schools, you've got to provide work. Schools were then told, exams have been cancelled, and we are going to give you some guidance so that you can predict grades. What were universities told? Universities were told, you've got to continue producing classes online for your existing students, and you have got to be flexible in terms of admissions for next year. What have the government said? What have Ofqual said? Ofqual are the exam regulator. They're the people who, they're like the Ofsted for the exam boards, if you like. They're making sure that all of the exam boards are going to apply the same systems. But the problem is, nobody has got a directive that says, this is what you have to do, this is how you're going to do it. I've got friends who work on leadership teams in schools. I've got friends who work in admissions at universities, and none of them know what is going to happen next because nobody's been told. There are various meetings in various places happening this week, and hopefully there will be some further guidance. But at the moment, there are no definitive answers. So if you are in Year 11 and you're not going to do any GCSEs, what can you expect? Well, at the moment, you can expect that schools are going to put together some sort of grade for you based on your mock exams, work that you may have done in school since those mock exams, and any other systems that they're then told that they can use. Some people panic when they hear that mock exam grades will be used, because obviously when you do a mock exam, you do that mock exam and you know it's December or January and the real thing's not going to happen until May. So you're not going to do your best performance in those mock exams, and schools know that. Schools have got data that goes back years. Schools look at the performance of students in mock exams, and they keep those mock exam grades. They have them in the system, and then they look at the grades that their students get in the real exams. And the vast majority of students will go up by at least one grade from the mock exams. So if you got, obviously the schools are going back on the old grades as well as the new grades, but all of those statistics are used to build up this picture. So schools will be looking at your performance in the mocks. They will know that your grade will increase by at least 1 grade. They will then look at individual situations, because for some people, they might focus on some subjects for the mock and deliberately leave others behind. Schools will know that because you will have had that discussion with your teacher. The government has said things like coursework will be used, and of course, anybody in education has said, yes, but there isn't any coursework anymore because it's been taken away. For some practical subjects, obviously it hasn't been taken away. Drama, PE, music, all of those subjects have got a practical element still there, and so that will be taken into consideration. But for other students, classroom contribution, work that's been set, all of those things are going to give a base for these grades. But schools are going to try and be fair. Schools are going to try and make sure that you are not disadvantaged by this. They're going to make sure that you are comfortable with where you end up. And that's why it's been mooted that there will be an exam session in the autumn at some point, which will allow people who are not happy with any grades they've been given to retake those exams. So they've got something that is not just a piece of paper with a grade on, but it's a piece of paper with a grade that they actually got. On the grand scale of things, does it matter? I would suggest no, it doesn't, because everybody in the country is in exactly the same position. Everybody in the country is being disadvantaged in exactly the same way. And the thing that matters most to you as a GCSE student is your mental health. The thing that matters the most is that you come through this and you feel, well, I coped with that. If you got 8 GCSEs, if you got 10 GCSEs, I would suggest it doesn't matter as long as the grades that you get on those GCSEs allow you to get to the sixth form course that you want to get onto. That's the thing that matters. Moving into the sixth form, moving into the apprenticeship, the grades might be the grades that you want, and they might not be. But on the grand scale of things, they are only a tool to allow you to get to the next step. There's something that says, I've moved on from year 11 to year 12. Schools will be setting you work really hard. Some schools are better equipped with technology than others. Some schools, some teachers will put more interesting things online. Other people will be really focused on this is the curriculum, this is what you've got to get through. So if you can do some of that work, then I suggest that you should do some of that work, because it's a reason to get out of bed in the morning. But if you look at it and you think, I really don't want to do that work, then do something else that's English related or maths related or music related. Find out what's going to be on your A-level course and have a look at some of the units on there, and maybe do a little bit of research that gets you ahead of the game, that lets you find out what subject you're going to be doing in the sixth form, and lets you find out a little bit about that subject in advance, so that you feel better prepared to do that subject. If you're a parent and you've got a young person who's saying, but I don't want to do that because it looks boring, or what's the point? To some extent, I can see where they're coming from, and I'm sure you can. And platitudes that say, oh, no, you need to do it, you have to do it, let's get on with it, are not necessarily going to help at this point, because what is the point of me doing them if it's not going to make a difference to the grade that I get? Anything that is set by the school is going to help to keep you going, to keep you ticking over. It builds up a routine. But I would suggest that there are other things that you could be doing, there are other things that you could be looking at to make that work more interesting, to break it up so that you're not sitting in front of a laptop all day, filling in things by rote that you know aren't actually very exciting to do. They're the bare bones. The thing that will be missing in all of this GCSE work is the face-to-face support that you're used to getting and you're not getting, and that's the hard part. So something that you might want to do is set up a bit of a study group with your friends So you can get onto something like Zoom, where you would be able to see each other face to face. You can have a look at it. You can just moan, if you want to just moan, about the good work that's been set, the bad work that's been set, or what you could do about it. So from a GCSE point of view, try and do something. Try and get yourself prepared for sixth form, whether that is working through what you have been given or researching and finding something out that's a bit more interesting. Year 13s. Year 13s, no A-levels. How are you going to get to university? Schools are in the same boat in terms of predicted grades. Obviously, anybody that put in a UCAS application was given a predicted grade, but those predicted grades were put together quite some time ago now, and they were based on if they're going to do the exam now, where do we think they're going to be? They would also build in the sense that you're going to increase a grade, hopefully, from where your mocks are. They would also build in things like what you're doing in the classroom, other projects. So all of those things are going to be built in so that you can focus on the work that you have got. Schools are sending work home, but again, it's very hard to motivate when you haven't got that face-to-face, where if you submit it, you submit it. If you don't, you don't. But think of it in terms of a preparation for university. When you go to university, you will be living on your own, away from your parents, and there won't be anybody to nag you to say, come on, get on with the work. You are going to have to be more motivated. And it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter whether you're working. It doesn't matter whether you are at school. It doesn't matter whether you're at university. There's always some bits of what you do that you don't want to do. And there's other bits that are more interesting. So, like I said, for students doing GCSE, focus on what you're actually going to be doing at university. Get yourself prepared for university. That means that you could enter into a dialogue with universities and you could say, look, I have had this amount of time away from school. I've read the content of the history topics that I still didn't get around to doing in school, or I've done more Spanish vocabulary. I have been looking at some maths online. These are the things that I've done to prepare myself. I have looked at the course that I'm going to be doing at university. I've found out there's a particular topic in there that sounds really interesting, or maybe there's something that I'm not sure about. I've researched the optional elements of my course. I've read about it. And that puts you in a position to say, look, I might not have been at school for this time, but this is what I've been doing about it. From the point of view of the universities, they have issued offers, but they're not going to be able to give offers out to everybody that they've made offers to, because in the real world, what universities do is they give out more offers than they have places, because some people won't get the grades and some people will say, actually, I don't want to go there. I'm going to go with my insurance offer. But having said that, the universities are in a position where they've got huge numbers of international students that are not now going to be starting those courses. And so the universities have got places to fill. So everybody who has been offered a place for university should not be panicking, thinking, am I going to get that place or not? There was a meeting on Friday with the universities. They were trying to agree what they should do. Government sources have said universities are always going to be restricted in the number of applicants they can admit, and that limit is now all up in the air, because what's going to happen with the students who come from other places? The universities are in the same position as everybody else. They're trying to do two things. They're trying to work with the students that they have. And don't forget, final year university students are in the same place as people who are doing A-levels and people doing GCSEs, because they're not going to do their finals either. So they're trying to deal with their existing students, and they're also trying to prepare for the students that they've got coming in. And again, there's still no formal guidance. UCAS, UCAS are saying there won't be any decisions until July. Universities, individual universities are saying there won't be anything till July. And the school, Ofqual, they're all saying there won't be any results until July. So everybody has got July at the moment as a deadline. You can't be hanging around waiting for it to be July. You've got to focus and think, what am I going to do with my time? What am I going to do to keep myself busy? And I would suggest keeping some sort of academic work going is the answer to that. Do the things that you like. Do something that interests you. Do something that inspires you. And try and find something that keeps you going. Create yourself a project. If you've got younger brothers and sisters, you might want to do some teaching with them. You might want to challenge your friends. You need to do something that keeps you going. Because at the moment, we don't know what's going to happen with the grades. We don't know what's going to happen with the university places. So I would suggest put it out of your mind and focus on what you can control. And what you can control is, what are you going to do on a day-to-day basis? What are you going to do from a work point of view? What are you going to do to prepare yourself academically to go to university? So if we could move on to the next slide, Susie, which looks at dealing with the feelings, because everything that I've just said, that's great, isn't it? But how am I supposed to feel about it all? And as a parent, you know, our role as a parent is to make everything better. Our role as a parent is to reassure and say everything's going to be fine. How can I help? As a parent, though, you might be stressed to bits about your own employment, stressed to bits about trying to work and keep the house going, stressed to bits about what your children are going through, and there is nothing that you can say at the moment that can give an answer, because you don't have the answer. So as a parent used to supporting your children, making things better for them, you're in a very strange time. And for you, I think this is very much a time to be honest and open with your children. The answer is, I don't know. And then move on. Let's go and do this. Let's look at that. That's easy to say if you're not on lockdown with a teenager who is angry one day and sad the next day. That's not easy to say if you're on lockdown with younger children who are very demanding in terms of time and can't occupy themselves in the way that older children can. So as a parent, it's not an easy time, or potentially not an easy time, because you're dealing with the unknown for yourselves. You may be worried about elderly parents, and you've also got children. And everything that you know as a parent, as an adult in the workforce, is being challenged and is being undermined. But I would say it's very important that as a parent you admit to having those feelings. Young people, how do young people feel? Young people, it really is unfair. If you're in year 11, if you're in year 13, your whole end of year, your prom, it's disappeared. Your interest in getting up every day and meeting your friends and talking to your friends has disappeared. Your hoodie that you're going to get from school, your finishing day shirt signing, all of those things, they've all gone. You might feel really angry because you've worked incredibly hard. You might feel really relieved because I haven't actually worked that hard and I'm not going to have to do those exams. You might feel sad. You know, school that you've moaned about most days about getting there, it's now not there anymore. And even if you do at some point go back, it's not going to be the same because people will have moved on. And maybe you just don't know how you're supposed to feel. And actually, that's probably the best thing to feel. How am I meant to feel in a situation like this? Nobody can answer that because nobody's ever been in a situation like this. So actually, as a young person, it's okay to feel angry, but not all of the time. It's okay to feel upset or sad as well, but not all of the time. And what parents and young people have got to try and do is work through this together. It's find a way forward that enables you to be open and honest and say, as parents and as young people, I'm having a bad day today, this is really hard. Or as a young person, what is the point of me doing this work? And as an adult, not lecture and say, oh, you need to do it, but actually have a sensible discussion about, well, I can see where you're coming from, but maybe we can use this to your advantage. Maybe we can make this work. As a parent, you're also in the position of trying to do your own work and supervise young people doing their work. That brings its own stresses as well. But I think key to getting through this is going to be communication. So in families, you're going to have to talk to each other. There is no point now storming upstairs and slamming the bedroom door because things are not going your way. It might make you feel better the instant you slam that door, but it's not going to make any of it go away. And as a parent, you know, coming in and shouting and getting angry, frustrated, annoyed might make you feel better in the very short term, but in the long term, it's not going to solve any problems. Whereas for everybody to sit down and to say, this is how I feel, and talk about it, work your way through it, that's going to make more of a difference. If we can look at the next slide. Dealing with lockdown, it's a strange word, isn't it? Lockdown. Dealing with, we're all now living together in the same house. And I think this could be an opportunity to enjoy being with each other. It could be a time to make memories. All of that schoolwork that is sent home, in some ways, it's a means to an end. But you shouldn't let it get in the way of taking advantage of some of this time that you're able to spend together. It would be very easy to say that this is all going to be incredibly negative. It would be very easy to say we can't cope with this. It is very easy to say, how on earth can I work from home and keep the house going and support the children? And what am I supposed to do with all these lessons anyway? Particularly if you've got young children who need more help with it. What am I supposed to do? You know, they don't do maths now the way that I used to do maths. It's hard. It's scary. As a parent, take a deep breath, because what's more important than anything is that you all get through this and you are all happy and resilient at the end of all of this. And I think the lockdown of schools is not something that is going to finish quickly. So if as a parent you think that we need to get up and we need to do all of this work today and then all of this work tomorrow and all of this work the next day, that work's still going to be there. It will still be there next week. It will still be there on Friday instead of Monday. Because whilst I agree it's very important to put routines in there, and whilst I agree that young people should be working through things that have been set from school, it's going to drive you mad as a parent if you try and replicate school, because school is school and home is home, and the two of them don't always work well together. So if you're trying to be the parent who is trying to become the educator and to run the house and to do your own work as well, something's going to give. So slow it down. Think about the positives, because I think there are positives. Think about the memories that you could make. Think about the opportunities that there are for sitting and literally looking at the sky, saying nothing but looking at the sky, or taking very young children out and doing a bug hunt in the garden, looking at how many insects that you see, just to calm people down and bring those stress levels down. There could be some role reversal going on here. Young people are actually a lot better at doing things than adults give them credit for. So if you are trying to work and you need something doing in the house, then maybe we could be looking at sharing things. This is an opportunity for young people to actually find out what their parents do for a living. You know, my mum is my dad is doesn't often make a lot of sense because you don't know what your parents actually do on a daily basis. So if you could involve them in your work and say, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it, then I think that would be a useful thing to do. If you're going to need time to do your own work, then schedule your work around times when they're going to do some of their work, and look at the structures that are going to work for yourselves. If you, as an adult, work best in the afternoons, then maybe mornings are the times when, as a family, you're going to do something together, and then in the afternoons, they're the times that you need to say to your children, I need to have 3 hours solid to get on and do something. That's going to be your 3 hours, and we're going to work together. And maybe instead of working separately, you could be working together in the same room so that they can see that you're doing your work and you can see that they're getting on and doing their work. And so you're building a work environment. If you're lucky enough and you've got space, you could literally have a work room that you all go into, and you could have a different room that's your family room, your bedroom. This, I think, is the wrong time for young people to spend hours and hours and hours locked up in their bedrooms on their own. This is a time when we need to be with people for some time so that we can help each other and talk to each other. So if you can make a workspace in your house, even if it makes you got to juggle the furniture around, but it's not their schoolroom, it's your workroom, and you're doing things together. Even if the things that you're doing are things like doing the shopping online or making the list of all of the things to do that you never got round to, involve your children in those lists as well, so that if you're going to do some decorating, then which decorating should we be doing? If we're going to be having a clear out, what should we clear out? It's got to be planned for and worked for with families. And I think if you're all working at some point, you should be working together. That allows them to see you're working, you to see that they're working. If you're having downtime, you need to have that downtime together. But equally, you do need some time alone. And it's okay to say, I'm going to go to my room to walk in the garden, whatever. The danger is when you're having that alone time, or a young person of any age, is having too much of that alone time and you feel that they are more and more socially isolated. That's when you need to encourage them to come out or talk to them about what it is they're doing. Do remember that alone time for young people is very different to what adults may do. For young people, actually, they do get their downtime by being on a screen. They do enjoy having the opportunity to just do something on a screen that's actually quite mindless, but they're using that to recharge their batteries. So whereas previously you might have said, you need to get off that screen, you've been on it forever, have the conversation. What do you actually do when you're on that screen? And the answer will be, it's just my chill time. I'm just coming down from whatever it is. And like everything else, you don't want to do it to excess, but it's about understanding how you work and about how they work. And the you, that's you, the adult, you, the young person. And the they, that's they, the young person, your children, or they, the adult, your parents. You need in these very strange times to pay more attention to how each other actually works. What is it that is going to be helpful, stressful for the other person, and try and do something about it to make it better. If you could do one thing on a daily basis that would make somebody's life better, would that be making your mum or your dad a cup of tea without being asked to? Would that be not opening a bedroom door and saying, you need to clear this mess? That would make such a difference both ways. And it's free, and it's easy. So maybe they're the sorts of things that we ought to be thinking about. And finally, we need to be planning for the future. So the last slide with bullet points on where we're planning for the future. Most importantly for all of us, it's about building resilience. It's about finding a way to get through all of this so that we can actually look back on it in years to come and say, well, we got through that. It was bad, but you know what? We got through it. So what is going to happen in the future? Well, young people, particularly those of you in year 13, are going to leave home pretty soon. So now that you're at home all of the time, you might have the opportunity to learn how to actually live on your own. How many young people can cook? This is time to prepare for going to university, learn some basic recipes and learn to cook them for the family. Because if you're away at uni, you will be living with a group of people, and it will be an awful lot cheaper for you if you're able to buy food and then cook food for a group of people and then share that food. That's the sort of thing that you could learn to do. Make your own recipe book. You know, what things do you really like? What are your favourite foods? What are you going to miss when you're in a flat at university and they're not getting cooked? Maybe this is your opportunity to learn how to do that. Parents, you're going to have to think about what it's going to be like when they've all gone. And there's a part of you that might go, that's the best thing ever. And there will be a part of you that thinks, I can't believe what it will be like when they're not there. So how are you going to prepare for that? You need to think about having time for yourselves so that it's not an empty nest, they've all gone, and you've got this void in your life. It's about thinking now, what am I going to do with that time? What have I always learned? What have I always wanted to learn that I could have as a new hobby? And get it started, get it sort of in place so that when you are confronted with that huge amount of time on your hands, you know what you want to do with it. Stop thinking about each other as the enemy almost. I've got to live in a house with my children. I've got to live in a house with my teenagers. I've got to live in a house with my mum and dad. Think about it as adults, because at some point you will all be adults and your relationship will change. Your mum will still be your mum and she'll still tell you what you need to do and how you're doing it wrong when, you know, you're 60 and she's 80, because that's what mums do. But learn to live together as adults. You know, as a young person, take on more responsibility. As an adult, as a parent, give more responsibility, because our children can do so much more than we give them credit for. But if we don't allow them to do those things, then they won't learn, and we're not in a position to help them, because we have taken their independence away from them, if you like, by doing too many things for them. Go out and learn a new skill. There's all sorts of things out there on the internet. From a young person, that could be learning how to cook. But as a young person, why don't you teach one of your parents or a friend that you have how to play one of these games that you use incessantly? As a parent, why can't you show your children how to do some of the things that you do on a daily basis? You know, start with the basics. This is how the washing machine works. But don't actually tell somebody, if you put that in on a hot wash, then it will shrink, because nobody actually gets that until it happens. So you could show what happens if you've got an old jumper that you want to sacrifice it. You could show what happens if you put a woolen jumper in on a boil wash. You could show what happens if you don't sort the laundry and you get a pink sock in with your white towels. Silly things like that, show people, rather than this constant, if you do this, then this is what will happen. Let them find out for themselves. So learn a new skill. As an adult, learn something that your children do. As a young person, learn something that your parents do. And that means that you can then be teaching those skills as well. You can be focusing on, how do I show somebody what they can do and how they are able to do it? Think about what you can do to make this into a positive. And that's not making a platitude. It's not saying that this is going to be easy all of the time, because it's not going to be easy, I don't think. But actually, I think we have to accept this is not going to be easy all of the time and move on from that. There is a platitude on the next slide. Take control of the things you can. Try not to worry about the things you can't. There are so many things in this situation that you can control, and you can think about, what I want to get out of this. And you can focus on those things. You can focus on the positives. And at the moment, there are huge amounts of things that you can't control. And one of the reasons that you can't control them is because you don't know what's going to happen, because people haven't made final decisions. So you're waiting for schools, Ofqual, universities, UCAS, government to make final decisions on things that are going to impact on you. But until those decisions are made, what can you do to help support those decisions? So if you think you're not going to get the grades that you want from school, what are you going to do until those grades are produced to change somebody's mind on that? Are you going to sit and do nothing? Are you going to complain about the work that you've been set? Or are you going to find some element of that work that you can control, that you can do something with, and you can make a difference? As a parent, you can worry as much as you like about your child's future. But at the moment, there is nothing that you can do about it. Nothing that you can do is going to change what happens in the first instance with exams, schools, universities. So work with the things that you can control. Work with your own life, your own work. Which elements of that can you work on? Which elements of that can you control? And work on, as a family, what can you control together? What can you make better for yourselves as a family? The things that you can't control will still be there. You can worry about them. You can get really panicky about them, and they will still be there. Or you can try hard to forget about them. Even if you can't forget about them for all of the time, forget about them for some of the time. Forget about them when you get up in the morning, because you're going to focus on, what is it we're going to do now? Today's routine is, this is what we're going to do in the morning, this is what we're going to do in the afternoon. You know yourselves from work that sometimes having the same routine is a bit mindless, and actually you don't focus on your tasks. And we all have a day of the week that we like better, because on Tuesdays this happens, or on Fridays this happens. Focus on putting those things in. So whilst you might have a routine, it doesn't have to be the same routine Monday through to Friday. It could be a routine that's varied. Weekends don't have to be kept as weekends. You know, you could be working 7 mornings and have 7 afternoons to do things together. Or Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Sundays could be your working days. Or Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays could be your working days. A routine, yes, but a routine that works for you as a family. Going back to the schools and parents, and what are you supposed to do and how are you supposed to do it, you can control what happens for your children in your house, and you can have that control, working with them. So focus on the things that are important. You know, whatever they do at whatever age, the maths and the English are going to be needed to get them the job at whatever level. If your children are older, if your children are GCSE and are A-level, we haven't got the exams at the moment. We haven't got the pressure of completing all of that homework all on time, because homework's not going to be set, because all of that work is going to be generated through whatever sessions the schools are going to put in place. So work on it together. Pick out the elements of it. Ask your children, you know, what's the most interesting bit of maths or music or French or history or English? And focus on the bit that interests, because this is going to go on for a long time. When the schools reopen, there's going to be a big job on for schools, because nobody will have followed the same routines. Nobody will have followed the same curriculum. So I wouldn't be worrying about getting behind. I wouldn't be worrying about what the neighbours are doing. I wouldn't be worried about what you see on Facebook or Instagram or whatever in terms of what other people are doing. I'd focus on what your family and your children are doing. Work together to make it work, so that as a family you come out of this stronger and you feel more comfortable being in each other's company. You've got a better understanding of their work and they have a better understanding of your work. You allow each other to have your own personal space. You work together to have time together that works, that's fun, that's interesting. You learn new skills. You focus on what matters. And there's two things that matter in all of this. One's family, one's your mental health. So that is the end of the presentation. There's a slide that has got a lot of references. There's references in addition to those. You can look at what the DFE are putting in terms of guidance. You can put up what UCAS are putting in terms of guidance. Both of those are meant to be making further statements this week, but nobody is going to have answers. So until those answers come out, concentrate on being a family, enjoying your time together. Okay, thank you. And I suspect we've got some questions.
Oh, thank you so much, Saleem, for a really insightful and helpful presentation. Yeah, so there is still time if you have a question to put it into your question box, and then I will read some out to you now, if that's okay, Saleem.
Yeah.
We've got a teacher one to start with. As head of subject, and with the possibility that year 11s can sit GCSEs in the autumn summer 2021, how do I keep them focused while setting work remotely?
I think it's going to be hard if you're setting work that is the sort of thing that in your head you're thinking, I need to set something that they will be able to do. So you do something that is very straightforward, not very exciting. I would go back to the olden days of teaching, if you like, where a lot of teaching was done through project learning. So if you're wanting to get people to do a topic because you know that you haven't done whatever it is, then put together a little mini project. Instead of giving everybody the same task, give them the sorts of things that they can do as little groups, or they can do as individuals, and they can bring their researchers back to the group. There are lots of online packages out there where students can communicate with each other, and they could be doing some of that research. It's going to be really hard to motivate young people if you're just telling them lists of, this is what you've got to do, answer this question, look at page 32 in your textbook. That's going to be mind-numbing for all of us. But if it's one of the topics that we have to do is this, and this is the work that I'm giving each of you to do, and then I'd like you to bring it back, I'll collate the responses, we'll have a look at what people have brought together, and that way you're going to be able to make, hopefully, what they're doing something that matters to them. You know your students, you know which of them would like to do a particular element of a topic. They don't have to do it as written work. They have to have evidence that they've done it. But if they have created a collage of something that is their response to a task you have set them in history or English. They've had to have done the research in order to put things in the collage. So whatever you can think of that means they're working more independently, which is what we want them all to be doing anyway, and which is something that they're going to be able to focus on. I think that is going to help them more than a list of questions and answers. Okay.
Great, thank you so much. So someone said, our head teacher has told us that students don't improve between mock and actual exams. Very disheartening. How do I know that the school will behave the same as other schools?
Well, I would suggest, not to put too fine a point on it, that if your head teacher says they don't improve between mocks and the real thing, they haven't actually studied the data, because the data going back forever says that the vast majority of students do improve, particularly those that were on the old D2B grades, or in the new currency, between 3 and 6 grades. They're the ones who tend to put on at least a grade. So I would be questioning where that data is coming from, because all of the friends and colleagues that I have still working in schools now have got their IT teams looking at the data, and their IT teams are saying, you know, statistically, this is what happens to our kids in our school. Forget the national picture. This is what happens in our school with our kids. As teachers, you will know what your previous groups did. You will know which children are likely to improve, which children will stay put. You know which ones will panic in exams. You know which ones will pull it together at the end and do really well in exams. And as a teacher, you need to make sure that your input is there. So as a teacher, I would be going through each of my class lists, and I would be thinking to myself, what can I write about that person? What are they likely to do? Think of it as if you were writing a reference for UCAS, where you don't put negative comments in, you focus on the positives. What positives can you say about that child? And I defy any teacher to not be able to find something positive to say, even about the most difficult children. And this might be an opportunity to think about the individuals in your class, to put something together and email that to the head and say, right, this is what I know about the children in my group, and actually this is what I know about the children in previous years. If you're able to access school systems, you'll be able to access previous year's grades, and you'll be able to look at the difference that has been made. Okay?
Thank you very much. This is a good question. I think as a parent of a current year 10, she is worrying about the content she is missing and what impact that will have on her GCSEs next year. How can I support with that?
I think it's a very good question, but the year 10s and the year 12s are going to be in exactly the same position as each other, because yes, they're missing time out of school. The one thing that I had heard was that the GCSEs for them and the A-levels for them might not actually happen at the traditional time. They might be moved later to accommodate for that extra time that they will need. When they do go back to school, the people in their year group will all have had different experiences. Some will have got so stressed that they will have tried to work far too hard. Others will have said, well, I'm not doing it unless anybody tells me to. So there will be a huge difference in their experience. So rather than worrying about it, if you know that your child is doing AQA GCSE English Literature or EdXL GCSE History, look on the exam board websites. You know, Google AQA GCSE History. You will find the specification. That will tell you the content. You can look at that with your child, and they can say, oh yeah, we've done that bit and we've done that bit. So you could get them to do a little research project of their own on the topics that they've done, and they could also investigate the topics that they haven't done and have a look at what they will be doing in the future. So they're starting to prepare themselves for it. So rather than wait for somebody to say, this is what you need to do, take the initiative, let them do a bit of Googling, let them print off the content page that says this is what what you're going to do in your GCSE. If there are options, so they don't know what literature book they're going to be doing in year 11, then contact the school and find out from them. And then they can be doing their own little bit of prior learning, so they're preparing themselves in the same way you would do. If you were going for an interview, you would read the background about the company that you're going to look at, get them to do the same for the topics that they will be doing next year. Stop panicking about the fact that you're not at school and not everybody's doing the same thing and what am I going to be? Control it. Take a deep breath, find out what's on that specification and do a little bit for yourself.
Thank you, Celine. Right, I think we've probably got time for one more question. How do we address the kids feeling that the results are pointless? How do you celebrate with them?
That's a really hard one because you do see where they're coming from. You know, this is not a certificate that I have earned. This is one that somebody gave me. And even though it would have been really hard work and really pressured, I would like to have done that for myself. That's the situation, unless they take advantage of the opportunity to do those exams at another point. You can always do GCSEs whenever. You can enter GCSEs as a private candidate. You don't have to be at a school. So if push comes to shove and you're really not happy with that exam result, then you can do it again. You can put yourself in, you can pay. I think a lot of that will be happening at various exam centres, not just school-based ones, so that there are ways that you can get the exam that you think you have worked for. And if they're saying that, you know, I don't feel that I deserve this or this doesn't reflect what I've got, then don't have that big celebration. Celebrate the fact that whilst you have been away from school, look at what you have done. Look at that great thing that you did on history. Look at that fantastic project that you did where you researched our family history and give them a reward for that, so that in your house you're rewarding them for the things that they have actually done. So if you're a family that traditionally gives financial rewards, there's a tenner for every whatever you get, then give that money for the project that they've done, the research that they've done on their own, the fact that they worked with their younger brothers and sisters. So personally, I don't think it would be right to celebrate those results in the same way that you would celebrate something that you've actually worked and sat and gone through all the pressures for. But I'm sure you can find other ways to celebrate it, and there will certainly be other opportunities to redo those exams. It doesn't matter if you don't get them the first time round. There are plenty of other opportunities out there.
Thanks so much, Celine. Just to say, Celine, we've had some really positive comments coming in about what a helpful talk it's been and how it's really given everyone some tips and some guidance to reassure their young people. So thanks for that. And thank you all for your contributions today. I should have said this at the beginning, I'm sorry. So you will receive this webinar via email tomorrow as you've experienced it today. So if you missed anything or any of the links, it will come to you tomorrow. That's my fault, I apologise. And then just to, it'd be really grateful if you wouldn't mind filling in the evaluation form, which will pop up on your screen in a minute. It just helps us to make sure that you know, we give you the best webinar that you'd like. Yeah, so that's all that's left for me. So thanks, Celine, once again for a really great session. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. I'm now going to end the webinar. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Celine.